Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk, the podcast where pet parents, pet guardians, and pet professionals come together to dive into real issues in dog parenting. From controversial training methods to sensitive health topics, we're getting raw and real about what it means to care for our canine companions. Join us every Wednesday for unfiltered conversations, expert insights, and personal stories that will make you laugh, cry, and grow as a pet parent. No topic is off limits and no question goes unanswered. You won't get one perspective here. You'll get them all because every dog is different and every human is too. You can follow along on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Straight Up Dog Talk or by visiting www.straightupdogtalk.com. Tune in from any of your favorite podcast platforms. Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk. I'm Em and we're back again with another phenomenal guest. This week we have Chrissy from the Joy Crew. How are you doing today, Chrissy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. I am so excited to have you. I think that I spend hours and hours watching your guys perform and all of the just various things that you do. You have such an interesting collection of dogs. First of all, they all have such very unique, fun personalities, but they also all have very different jobs. And I think that for performance and dog actors and all of the things that you guys do, it's kind of a neat thing to share with the audience a little bit about you to start. And then let's get into, how do you get into this kind of stuff? Because I'm sure there are people out there who are like, wow, this is kind of crazy and fun looking. So tell us a little bit about you and what you guys do and how you got into this and all of the things.
Sounds great. So it kind of goes back to when I was a child. I always loved animals. I was animal crazy, but I did have a bunch of anxiety growing up as a young child. I found a lot of my solace in training my dog at home, and I didn't have a book or any kind of instruction like we can watch on YouTube these days. So I just sort of explored working with her and teaching her things based on what I figured would work with luring treats. And so my passion for working with animals started at a very young age. At the same time, I also had a huge passion for TV and film and the idea of working on a production. So I used to watch the credits of TV shows, movies, anything that showcased animals. And I would look at the credits and I would try to see who provided that animal, which was such a neat thing to do. But again, without much lucrative kind of response because there was nowhere to go to look up these people and learn more or pick up the phone or send an email. So there was this kind of a dead end of an idea of having a dream. Grew up trying to work both of these worlds. I jumped into the world of horses and training, really pushed, went to college for that and had a dog, but wasn't really serious about training my dog. And again, this was still our family dog, not my own. And then it actually turned into me getting involved in production. And so what I did outside of high school where I did theater, I started to do some work as an actor and try to get involved in doing movie type TV series or auditions in New York City. So a lot of it was like extra work, but at the same time, that taught me so much about how production even works and what to expect and the demands of your day on set, which it can be grueling and very long in a hurry up and wait type of atmosphere. So I think early on that taught me that I had what it took to be in a world like that, because a lot of people will get into that world, realize it's not so glamorous, and then want to get out. For me, it was something that I was like, no, I still really like this line of work. I was enthralled in the world of moving equipment and actors and everything that it took to put on a production, including my small role, which went anywhere from being an extra to even starring in my own commercials where I was the lead talent. Within that world, I still was missing a piece of me because I really loved working with animals and it was hard to juggle the both worlds. There was a huge epiphany in my life when I guess I would say I hit an emotional rock bottom. And so my husband and I decided that let's adopt a dog because maybe this would be something that's good for me. I would have the companionship. He was working long shift hours and I just have a dog in my life. And my goal was just to go hiking and just to have a buddy. Fast forward, it turned into me igniting my passion at an older age. So it's something I put down for a while. Horses were always a part of my life. But dog training wasn't really a thing. In fact, I just wanted to have a well-trained dog. I took him to the local obedience facility and I guess this is what we do, right? Sit, stay, look, all that stuff. But I found out that there was so much more to training later in life in my 20s and learned that trick training was a thing, which I didn't even realize. We trick trained our horses. That was actually a course we did. And it was really fun to teach a horse to lay down and drink water on command and all these crazy things you could teach a horse. But I didn't realize that trick training your pet dog was possible. And as soon as I started to get involved in that, I was in love and I was hooked. So what that did for me at that age was it started to be able to connect the both worlds, because I was deeply in love with my dog and now this world of learning that I was able to jump right in on, and still wanting to pursue a lifestyle in TV and film, but I wasn't sure what that meant. The beauty is that we have social media today. So now I'm able to go on Facebook and look up a business or something of that sort. And at the time, I had human talent agents, so people for people. And what I did is I called them and I said, where do you go if you need a dog? This is something I've always wanted to do. No idea how to get involved. And they said, oh, well, we go to a couple different agents they had in mind. And what I did was I would reach out to them and say, hey, I've got this one dog. We have trick titles. Can I hop on a call with you? How would I get involved? I'm dying to do this since I was a little girl. And that was the first steps to get involved, was to make those connections. But also what really helped propel me forward was that I came from a background that I already know how set works. I already have the experience. I am not going to be a pet parent without prior set experience. I have already done it as a host, as an actor. I just wanted to get my dog involved now. So that was a big help, was that I already knew the kind of terminology that they used on set. I kind of already knew how the day was going to go. I understood the professional hierarchy. You talk to certain people, you don't talk to others, and that kind of world. I kind of already understood it. So that was really helpful in giving my dog the opportunity to get on set, because agents were willing to take a bigger risk with me being new, but they were able to take that risk because I had a leg up in experience. And I really believe that helped. And then after that, it's just about reputation and your training and word of mouth and how active you do stay and keeping your eye out for casting calls and things like that.
First of all, it amazes me the amount of people that I start having these conversations with, and it starts out with horses. I was a horse girl too. I did summer camp every year, did the horse camp add on, and got to ride horses, work with horses, and then worked with horses all through my adult life. And so I love it when I run into another person that's worked with horses, because I think it's funny how a lot of us were horse girlies, and then in our adult age, and we were dog girlies when we were little kids too, but now we're like really dog girlies.
Now, where did you go for your horse camp? I always ask.
Just a local camp here in Iowa. It's called Camp Wapsie.
Okay. So I went to a horse camp too. I went to a sleepaway horse camp and I loved it. It was the best experience I ever had. They closed down years ago, but it's learning not just having an animal in your life, it's learning there's so much responsibility around it that as a child, it became a comfort zone because it's very pattern like and it's very routine like. So someone with anxiety, there was always something I knew I could expect because you had to do certain things. And that was really nice to have that kind of predictable pattern. But as a child, it really does teach you to step up and be responsible.
Yeah. And I mean, and this wasn't specifically a horse camp. It was regular camp, sleepaway, same thing.
Yeah.
And you could add on the horse part. And that's what I did. I added on the horse part. So while everybody else is making leather stamped bracelets, I'm brushing horses and riding.
Right. I know, me too.
I love it. And I also, with how you got into the acting with the dogs and stuff, I think that's great, because you had that background, you had that foundation. You didn't just go in blind. I know that there are a couple of accounts out there specifically do more with your dogs where you can take a dog acting class. I'm sure there's other kinds of certifications and things out there that you can do. But I think that it's really important, like you said, to educate yourself on these things. It's the same as, when you're training your dog specifically for anything, whether that's service dog work, acting work, tricks, or sports. You have to understand the environment. You have to understand the world, and you have to understand your dog. You have to know if your dog is the right dog for this, because if your dog isn't going to not do well on set, or your dog is going to hide and cower in the corner, certain things that your dog might not be prepared for. And I think that is the biggest point here that I want to make, is that not every dog is an actor. Not every dog is a service dog. Not every dog is a trick dog or a sports dog. You really do have to have the right temperament. So you have 4 dogs and they all do different things. Oh, I'm sorry, 5.
Yeah, Beasley's always like sleeping. I don't really push him to do as much anymore. So he kind of just makes little inserts of himself.
I do see him and he is a handsome
Yeah.
guy. He just is not as he's not
He's not
usually in the group
crazy.
photos, which is why I completely just out of my head there for a second. Sorry, Beasley, extra shout out to you. But they all have different jobs. They all do different things. And how do you determine that as their mom? How do you say, okay, Fuji does this, but Beasley does this? How do you figure that out?
Well, I'll tell you the first thing that I do with all my dogs is I do try to equally cross train them. So if a casting call comes around, they all have the foundation. They all can do the same things of the foundation needed for set work. So it depends on each dog. And the one thing I always tell people is that I've got 5 very different dog characters in my house. So I've got Beasley, who's going to play the older, slow, calm dog perfectly. Darby is going to be anywhere in between to your high energy, can also settle beautifully. Whidbey is super chill. He's perfectly ideal to get up and go, but he's going to be a great chill dog. Fuji is small, but with being his breed mix, he is more sensitive than I would say some of the other dogs. And so it's taken him longer to warm up to people, but he would thrive in more environments that there's going to be just photo shoots and things like that. And he's come so long, but there's things I'm always keeping in mind. Journey is a puppy, so he's 9 months old. So you have to realize that he's got his foundation, but every situation is different and he finds people very rewarding. So there's some impulse control behaviors happening there that needs to be cleaned up, but they're each 5 a character, and that's where I've had movies approach me and through our agencies and they'll say, hey, we want to maybe use one of your dogs. I'm always like, can I see the actions? Can I see the script? Because that's going to help me dictate who I think is the best fit based on the script I have ahead of me. Some dogs are better at barking. Some dogs are better at their chill behaviors. Some dogs are going to give me get up and go constantly. And some dogs are going to struggle in giving me get up and go constantly. So understanding the task at hand is always what I want you to do when looking for your dog to go on set, is to understand what are the expectations asked of my dog. And if there's anything that makes you go, well, or we could probably train it in a week, or we sort of have that behavior, then I say, do not go for the casting call, because you need to have that perfected and ready and solid in many different environments. Then I would say, yes, if your dog can do those actions and is comfortable in those environments, please go ahead and put him forward. But if your dog hates water, don't get the bathing job because you're desperate to have your dog be on set. Also, that's your reputation. It doesn't take a long time for a couple of agents to go, nah, I'm not going to probably bring her on again because the dog didn't do great and we struggled and they had to reshoot stuff. So you being as honest as you can for your dog's capabilities and your dog's limitations to get a job and to do well at that job or to bypass that job is actually going to help you further in your career if you choose to withhold on some jobs and move forward on others. Now, does that mean you can contact your agent and say, Journey could absolutely do what you want. Remember, he's a 9-month-old puppy. So although they love his look and he can do what you need, remember, he's a puppy. So there may be a window where he needs rest or we lose it because he's a puppy. But sometimes they'll be like, okay, well, we're willing to take that risk. So you can have conversations about it if there are certain situations that your dog would be a good fit except for, and let the agent make that call if that's something they are still willing to put your dog in, or if they say, I think it's better that we do wait. That's just something about you being honest with your dog. Now, dogs really do need to have a great level of exposure work, and that means they can't be sensitive to noise. It means that they have to be able to generalize their skills in any environment. This means that your dog should be good with strangers, because it's not just if there's an actor or not. There's going to be loads of people on set wearing hats, wearing glasses, maybe a mask, moving equipment, big baggy clothing. Your dog can't be the one that gets always triggered by a man in a mask or a man in a hat. You really do need to have your dog's mind stable and comfortable and low stress in those environments, because a lot of times I'll see people who put their dogs on set and the dog is showcasing all these stress behaviors or displacement behaviors, but the owner will just kind of put them in a box constantly to just get the job done. But is the dog really enjoying it? Like, at this point, are you doing it for you? Are you doing it for you and the dog to have a good time? Or is it just to fulfill your own needs and your own ego? And that's kind of what we want to avoid, which is why I have 5 dogs, but you mainly see 4 because Beasley is almost 10. And at this age in his life, he'll do a couple set jobs really low key, like sleeping, stuff like that. But I will showcase 4 usually, and you'll never see the 5th because I let Beasley opt out if he doesn't want to do stuff. So I give him the choice to opt in or opt out. My 4 younger ones are going to come bounding out of the crate on set to do the thing. And in fact, I will tell you, when Beasley's on set, he's like, yes. He just loves that world. It's like, that's where he's his happiest. But when we're home, I really do let him opt in and opt out, which is why you may not see him as often on social. And I think that's important that we sit back and we really try to evaluate what our dog is trying to tell us before we just throw all these expectations at them.
I love that you went there and that you used the exact phrase, because that's exactly where I was going to go next with this, is that we need to give our dogs a choice, right? Dogs have so little choice in so many things in our lives. We bring them into our houses and we expect them to act a certain way and follow the rules and all this stuff, but we're really teaching dogs human. We're not teaching humans dog, right? So that opt in and opt out is so important. And if you're taking a dog to do all of these fun, crazy things for you, make sure that you have the right dog. Make sure you have the dog that wants to opt in. Because like you said, there's all these crazy things, right? Masks, crazy costumes, makeup. Maybe there's somebody that walks around and it makes a weird noise because of the way their costume fits them. And you can't have your dog be jumping and barking or potentially biting somebody just because they have been triggered by this arm that moves weird on this costume. I'm sure there's all kinds of crazy stuff on set, like water and balloons. You really have to have the right kind of dog for this. And I don't think that enough people understand why temperament testing is so important for acting dogs, service dogs, sport dogs, all of those range of topics, because they kind of all overlap in the kind of climates that they are working in, right? Because they're ever changing. They're never stable.
Yeah, and there really is there's no union for dogs. So there's no protection in that kind of sense as far as that kind of level of protection and for jobs. And there is no official governing body that can label your dog as a dog actor. There are programs that people have created to sort of give strategy behind it. Even with those papers and certificates, it does not validate that your dog is set ready until you have actually had the mileage. So that's why I always say, I think it's great. Do all the learnings, go down the process. The more you know, right? I think that's wonderful. However, I think there's an immense value in checking yourself when casting calls come out. And I think that the first year you do stuff with your dog, it should be studio photo shoot based. It should be maybe walking on leash with an actor, A to B. I'm talking set your dog up for so much success. You may have all the tricks in the book, but set your dog up for so much success, because that silly little easy job of sit stay, think about, it's like leveling up in video games. So your dog may be like level 10 for skills, right? But the exposure work of a set might be at level 2. So by having them just do this sit stay that you're like, oh my God, you can totally do that in his sleep, right? But you're gaining all this leverage in the exposure work, which is only going to make them more confident and ready for when you want to throw them into a harder job. Because if you throw them into something where now they're overwhelmed, and by the way, you're going to be nervous and they're going to feed off of your nerves. So I always say, let's keep the job super easy when you first get started to set you and your dog up for success, because when you get on set, your heart's going to race a little and you're going to feel the pressure. And you're going to feel the pressure where you're like, man, I wish I didn't push my dog that hard. I wish I had said something sooner. There's all those feelings that are going to come up, and there's all these things that we have gone through, because it's not like the production wants you to fail or wants to make you feel bad. But that's not the case. They just don't know what it takes to go into training this dog so he can get his job done. So they don't understand that the dog needs an extra minute. They don't understand why the dog can't do it 15 times in a row. They can't understand if the dog's panting, why can't he just close his mouth? We get that all the time because they just don't understand. So there's this level of communication you have to be able to do. But what I'm trying to say is that you need to kind of work through those jitters with your new dog on set together. So I always say, try to err on the side of the simpler jobs to get started.
Exactly. And I think what you were saying about exposure is exactly like socialization. I think that people a lot of times get the wrong idea when it comes to what socialization is. Socialization does not mean your dog needs friends. It doesn't mean that your
Right.
dog needs to be friends with other people. Socialization means taking your dog out of your home environment and letting them have experiences in the world, one level at a time. Like you
Right.
said, the video game, it's got to get harder and harder and harder. But socialization starts in your house and then it moves, to your backyard and then it moves to your front yard and then it moves around the block and then it maybe moves to the next block and then we're in the car and then we're building these things up. We don't just go straight from our living room to the movie set. There are steps in between there that we have to take because otherwise our dog isn't going to be successful because they
Right.
have absolutely no idea why the heck we just went from training this in front of the couch to
Right.
now there's 18 people around me and that guy with the funny arm costume is over there and that lady has this weird hat and we're in this completely new environment and it goes in here because
And
of the
that's
way that the system.
absolutely. And that's where, socialization neutrality is important so that they don't have to love the people, but they also can't be reactive to the people. But that does mean you may want to be careful choosing the lifestyle shoot where they expect the actor to cuddle up or the kids to cuddle up on the dog if your dog has survived being neutral but does not like to be coddled. So you're like, oh, my dog's neutral and I've gotten to the neutrality phase, then your dog is not a good fit for the cuddling, gonna be with family, pet, all over shoot, because your neutral dog may just be surviving in that neutral environment and that's their happy place, right? But the touching and the feeling and the holding could now swing them to where you're trying to work problems out that you've been able to kind of fizzle out for a while by just making them neutral that okay, I can be good around people because no one's going to get in my space too much, right? But if you have the dog that like out of my 5, I have a probably 4 out of 5 that will absolutely do all of this cuddling and be all about it right away. So those will be my first push to go and be the front runners for a job that requires that because yes, you will get some where hey, this movie really wants there to be a bond between the handler and the dog, and if your dog is like I'll deal with strangers but I really want nothing to do with them, that's not going to be a good fit. So it's knowing your dog even to that extent that is so important when you look at casting calls, talk to agents about an upcoming job, and be honest about your dog. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It doesn't mean that your dog's not good enough. One thing I like to tell people is that there is work for everybody. There really is. Just because I get work doesn't mean there's no work for anybody else. There's work for everyone, but you need to be honest, even if it means that you're saying my dog hates water. It's okay. A lot of dogs hate water, and maybe this isn't the job for you, but there's going to be other ones where your dog's going to be a great fit.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of those situations. If you have the right dog for this, and like you said, not every actor or actress is even the right fit for every movie,
Right,
right?
so
So
true.
think
Yeah.
about it the same way for your dog and be honest and keep trying. Are there any movies that you can say right now? I know there's privacy things and stuff that you probably have to sign before movies release, but is there a movie that's out that you can point to that one of your dogs is in or a TV show or anything?
I think some of the ones that I really like to point out are kid-based movies, so lower budget. But if you're going to watch it for the value of dog actors, that's cool because there's a lot of tricks and skills that you can relate to that are different from your dog just being a pet, right? So Junkyard Dogs and Agent Toby Barks. Junkyard Dogs, Agent Toby Barks. They have my dogs in it as the front lead characters. Junkyard Dogs actually has 2 of my dogs in it, and my third one makes a cameo and later on. But that is dog characters doing trick human-like skills. So that's really fun to watch. So typing on a keyboard, driving a car, pressing buttons, like things like that, pulling a rope so the bad guy trips over it, all this kind of stuff. Really, really, really fun type of things that you can appreciate from a dog trainer standpoint. And then there are other ones. We just finished a movie with Sydney Sweeney and Julianne Moore. I don't have the working title for it, but Higby plays very much the character's farm dog. So therefore you're not seeing tricks. You're seeing dog behaviors. I always tell people is everyone thinks they have to go off and get all these trick titles. 90% of the time, your dog's going to be hired to be a dog on cue. So it's your dog doing dog-like behaviors, but can they do it on cue and can they do it over and over again with the same energy as the first time? So that's what you need to keep in the forefront of your mind that all these fancy tricks are probably not going to be utilized as much as your dog just acting like a dog. So that's where, working with strangers and being able to do a lot of these basics, but in all different environments is going to be very helpful. Another thing that I'd like to add there, just to finish that conversation out about temperament, is that the first thing is your dog's look. And as cliche that sounds, or as shallow that sounds, it is a lot of times they have an idea of what they want the dog to look like. So that's a size, that's a look, that's a style. And that will be what determines them to even choose this pool of dogs versus this pool of dogs. Sometimes it's nothing against your dog's skills. You could have everything in play, but they really had the small dog size in mind, or the large dog size, this, that, and the other thing. So it does come down to a dog's look sometimes is what will determine even why they're put in this pool and why you might be shelved right away, even though you had all the qualifications.
It's really interesting. I guess I didn't even think about that, but that totally makes sense because especially if it's like a book that's now a movie and the dog was a Jack Russell Terrier in the book and they want to try to keep that as true as possible, they're going to look for a certain type of dog. So yeah, that absolutely makes sense. So cool. I just think what you do is so cool and so
Thank
fun
you.
and just I can't even imagine how many hours a day you spend working on skills and training. Where do you start when they're puppies? I know you said you foundational stuff, which obviously you have to go through all of the obedience stuff in order to move on to the next stuff. What is the first trick that you train?
I have an online course that goes through the foundations. It's literally called the foundations. And this is what I've started all my dogs on. And it is for whether you're going the performance route or you're going the TV and film route. It is the way I start all my puppies. It does go with a mark behavior. Going to a mark begins with hind end awareness. So it's pivoting all the way to backing up to a mark and having the essence of working away from you from a young age and just getting them comfortable. They don't need to be right up to you. They don't need to be magnetized to the treat to get all the things done. And I love to instill free shaping so that there's more thinking on their own to get that answer, because I feel that that is going to stick with them a lot longer than if I'm trying to lead them every single step of the way, where really they're just getting lost in the scent of the treat and they're not really thinking about their environment. So that's kind of where I start. And I have a course called The Foundations. If anyone was ever interested, I highly suggest it. Just go in there. It's great basics for any age dog, any breed dog, any stage of your learning to sort of clean up your communication. And then I have the why as to why I do certain words the way I do and when I do it. And I really just think that's been a consistent foundation I've worked across from my low drive Beasley to my highest drive Darby and all the dogs in between. And it has paid off immensely, be a communication line that we've consistently carried into all of our other trainings, and also just be proprioception for them. So they know where their hind legs are. They know exactly how to move their body. They know how to go back to a mark, have impulse control. That's all wrapped into that course.
I need to take that course with my dog Fizz.
Not a very difficult one. You look at it and you go, really? I kind of have all these skills. And I say, yeah, that's great. But can you do it with no luring? Can you do it at a distance? Can you do it with impulse control? Can they do it with free thinking on their own? And that's where we separate the people who maybe they know it, but there's all these little pitfalls occurring as soon as they try to take the treats out of the equation and have no treats on them and try to do it from a 12-foot distance. And then they realize, oh, shoot, I don't really know if I have all this. So it's a really great starter course, which then in that program itself, we have if you want to go the live show route, we have courses that go the live show route. And if you want to go in other routes, we have them building even right now, where we're going to have some new releases coming out.
Well, my dog is definitely not a dog that would be acting dog, but we are big on tricks. He loves to learn tricks. And we got an agility course for the backyard, and he's been learning how to do all of that stuff. But I always say, legitimately, that he never knows where his back feet are, and he's always stepping on his little brother. And so I think maybe I need to take your course. So we'll make sure to have the link to that for the listeners in the episode details, and then also on the socials, because I'm sure that there are plenty of other people that think that way about their dogs.
Yeah,
too.
it's a great starting point. It's a great starting point to go anywhere with your dog. It's just gonna connect you guys at a better level so that anything you do in the future is easier. Now, I will tell you, everyone's like, man, you must train hours a day. I mean, you mentioned it yourself. To be honest, I train maybe 15 minutes twice a day for them, each of them. So like within an hour, they all get some type of work, and we might do that twice a day. If I'm lucky, twice a day. Actually depend on two theories, which is latent learning. So that's you teach them a little bit of a concept, you give it a rest, come back later. But I also make sure that in that world of learning, I'm doing what I call perfect practice. So they're rewarded when they do it perfectly. I do
Mhm.
not mess around with, well, you kind of went over the mark. Here's a treat anyway. Or, oh, I'm resetting props. Here's a treat while I'm resetting stuff. I mean, we just end up being an ATM machine and we don't even realize it. And no, I do it like you do what you're asked. I break it down into a million steps if you need it. So it's super easy to do, but I'm only going to reward that perfect practice. So if a trick is really hard, and I break it into 5 pieces, and the first piece he's still like, no, can't get it, no, then I'll break that first piece into 3 pieces. But I'm going to make sure that those little slivers of work we're doing is perfect for you to get that reward, because it cuts down on your training time. It cuts down on time having to redo things and retrain things that you kind of train something wrong by mistake. And so it cleans things up, and so that you're able to achieve more, like a lot faster in a shorter amount of time, which is exactly what happens on set. You have very little time to get on set. You have very little time to get acquainted to the situation. So your dog and you have to be able to be extremely clean in your communication, to work fast and efficient and teach him what he needs to do in that small amount of time. And then you're rolling.
It's very cool. Yeah, I'm excited to learn from you. I love watching your stuff. And since we're
Thank
talking
you.
about that movement and your dog flowing with you, I think my favorite videos of yours to watch are not even the acting based ones. It's your disc dancing that you
Oh, thank
do.
you.
That's literally what got me to start following you guys.
Yeah.
This is amazing. I am obsessed with this. Um,
Wow. Thank
I just,
you.
yeah, it's so cool. You guys, I don't even remember where it was. I just remember the background. You were in this purple square ring and you had your purple discs, and the dogs are doing all these tricks and they're
Yeah.
jumping off of you and then they're catching the discs and they're flipping. And it's just, I mean, it's just so cool that to
Thank
do
you.
that. I would love to have a dog did that with me, and maybe that's not Fitz, but I definitely think I would love to have a dog that could learn to do something fun like that, because I mean that's exercise for you, it's exercise for the dog, and I mean talk about a bonding activity,
Oh, yeah.
because you really have to be in the movement together.
Yep.
Why don't you share a little bit about that? I don't even know if I called it the right thing.
It's called Canine Freestyle, but they call it Disc Freestyle. Just filmed the dog dancing show, which will be out later in August. And that's all just dancing with your dog. So that is just you and your dog dancing, which is a great element to do on its own. But there's a Disc Freestyle. So it's kind of the same, but you have frisbees that need to be caught, different ways you can release the disc to lead into a movement. And all of that is super fun. When I got Beasley, we fell in love with trick training. The best thing I did, honestly, was get a second dog, because I realized our relationship was becoming a little strained when I was like, well, I want to do all these other things. And he's a 70-pound heavy mixed breed. He's not made to rebound. And so I realized that I want to keep learning. And I was pushing him beyond the point of where he physically should have gone. And so I quickly put a stop to that, because I don't want to injure him. And the best thing I did was get another dog so I could continue learning and enjoying that lifestyle. And I learned quickly that I absolutely love working with border collies. And I know that sounds cliche. A lot of people are like, oh, border collies, everyone loves border collies. But I think they're the one breed that matches matches my personality to a T. Or like Fuji, who is like a mini Aussie border pap. Oh my gosh. So like the Hurdy breeds are
He's so
definitely,
cute. I
he
I
is,
have I have a big heart for Fuji.
he
I think
is
he's so cute.
so sassy and troublesome, but such a big, kind heart. I'm really connected to him. So the herding breeds is definitely was a good move for me. And that's what I say for yourself is you have to understand your limitations and your capabilities. But even in my performance course online, there's a lot of modifications that we use. I have people I work one-on-one with on a monthly basis, and we will modify certain things so that their dogs can still benefit from the learnings, but not needing to do the physical part of things that might be too much for them. But find what works well for you guys. You can do dance with your dog. You never have to leave the ground. There's so many great ways you can communicate and do things right on the ground with your dog in dancing freestyle. So that's another neat thing too, is that it doesn't mean you have to have dogs that will leap in the air. There's all different variations of doggy dancing and how you can kind of explore that.
Okay, well, I'm definitely in on that. So Fitz, my dog, he is a border collie mix.
Yeah,
He's like
great.
35% border collie. I have also fallen in love with herding breeds. I did not know what I was getting into when I rescued him. I didn't really rescue him. He was given to me by a friend. He was an accidental litter. They rescued a dog from the side of the road, and their current dog got her pregnant, but she had a shattered leg and had to have her leg amputated. So she only had two puppies, but they didn't want to spay her at the same time because they were afraid she wouldn't make it through the amputation and the spay at the same time because
Oh,
she was
of course.
completely emaciated, right?
Wow.
So she had two little puppies, and I got Fitz. I knew the dad was an American Eskimo Border Collie mix, but had no idea what the mom was. And then I find out he's all working breeds, he's all guardian breeds, he's just got the stuff and he's got the spunk. And hearing you say he doesn't have to leave the ground, challenge accepted. You and I are going to have a conversation after this about learning how to dance with Fitz because I am just obsessed with it.
Honestly, anyone wanting to get started, like grab the foundations course online. Just get through that because it actually ends with orbit, which is a fun trick where the dog reverses around you. And so that course leads you up in the basics to get that trick done. And then you have this great basic foundation of learning, communication, and body awareness that will just lead you right into our performance course, which has a lot of tricks that are ground based for your dog to do different moves. Super, super fun. I highly suggest it and explore that world. Dog Talent Association, every year, Dog Talent Association has their International Trick Dog Champion competition. We won 2021 with Beasley, but every season they do another one. And it's great because if winter is hard for you and you're looking for ways to engage with your dog and ways to stay motivated, they have challenges, bi-weekly challenges, and you can join these classes for like $5. And this week, use as many props that are red and then do a certain thing. And then you get to be judged and you get to fall in like a place of placements. And at the end, they accumulate the points and see who wins. But it's a really fun way to explore dancing, explore props, explore doing tricks with your dog all at home. So if you're not sure your direction, you're not sure where to go, check them out to see some of the competitors that have done stuff in the past. There's everybody from a novice level to champion level. It's a great place to feel welcomed, have just enough challenge and support, and keep you accountable, which is something that I think people really struggle with, which is why I do my one-on-one. I have a one-on-one coaching program where you could actually join me for 3 months. And the accountability is what's such a big deal about that. Because I think we all have our aspirations, but sometimes we're like, shoot, I kind of haven't gotten that thing done I always wanted to do. I should have taught that trick, but you have no one holding you to it. You have no one helping you along when you get stuck. So, that's why I love the mental health side of dog trainers because we have a huge life around just our dog and a lot of pressures. And sometimes our dog has to come last sometimes because we are getting everything else done in our day. Our cup is empty by the time we get to them. And so having a support group around you to help motivate you and keep you on track can be all that you needed to just build a new habit. And then you're not thinking twice, you're just getting it done. So definitely.
That's exactly why I started building this podcast community was because I think that there are a lot of us out there that struggle with depression, anxiety, all these other things that it is around our dogs and in ourselves separately. I just wanted to create a place where people could go and be connected to people like you and be like, this is exactly what I was looking for. Now I know where to start. And I think that it's so important for us to have this little support community where we're all here for each other and we can help each other into new areas of interest. And that's why we started doing tricks in the winter because I struggle really badly in the winter with depression.
So do I.
I live in a state where there's snow and cold and we can't go outside and do a lot of things. So we started trick training because that gave something for me to do with him that gave him an outlet, being able to run around in the yard as well as him learning something. And he's eager to learn, but it also helped me mentally and emotionally feel like I was doing something. So you can have the little therapy sessions with your dogs, but I think that having other people who understand that too is also really important, which is again why I said I created this community so that we could share the hard stuff because it's not fun to talk about the hard stuff, but dang, people need to know that it isn't always sunshine and rainbows.
And it doesn't help that everywhere on social media, you're bombarded with, look what all these people are doing and look what you're not doing. I mean, that's literally what your newsfeed will try to scream at you constantly. And it doesn't have to be obvious. It could be in little ways, but you're going to, at least I do, many people don't, but constantly look at it and go, I'm so impressed. I like what I'm seeing, but at the same time, it's like a deep reflection on myself immediately that I'm like, maybe I'm not doing enough, or I should be farther along than I am, or my dogs are getting older and I still haven't done X. Like I get into all of those cyclical thought patterns, which actually does nothing to help me. So I've been trying to dedicate time to social, then dedicate time to just being in the training room and building a little bit of a planner for me to like, okay, we're working on these skills and we're going to just stay on that path without the added pressures of everyone's teaching this trick. I should be doing it too. My background comes from TV, film, and live performances. So that ball is always recreating itself. New shows, new moves people are doing. So there's this constant battle of keep doing the best of the best with everybody else. And the reality, I'm like, life is too short. Like I want to enjoy the time I had with them and not have it feel like a rat race and then make major mistakes down the road and potentially get my dogs injured or anything like that. So I totally understand if anybody else out there deals with that. And I think coming to podcasts just like your own is super important to be able to feel some normalcy around, the behind the scenes of the entities we see on social media.
Yeah. And knowing that other people are feeling the same way and struggling the same way, I think really kind of helps tone down the glamour that we see all over social media. Because, of course, aesthetic is important. That's, we go to social media for the aesthetic, but also we have to remember that the aesthetic is not 100% of the time. And most of us are like sitting here like I am right now, just in comfy PJs.
Or you have your background blurred because you have a giant mess behind you. It's reality, it's
great. I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, Chrissy, we're about to run out of time here, but I would love for you to leave the listeners with something that you feel is super important today before we close out.
The one thing that I find that's really important to just remember is that everybody's on their own journey. It's not a matter of needing to achieve someone else's accomplishments. It's about finding your path that works for your family and your dogs, meeting your own goals. And that also means don't be afraid to reach out for support and reach out for advice from your peers around you if that can be something that helps you along your way. But try not to play the comparison game and try to stay true to what you feel is right in your heart and your gut, especially as you and your dog try new ventures together and discover what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So that's the biggest thing I always try to leave people with is try not to compare constantly online. It's not real most of the time what people are seeing. And if you do have questions about anything that you want to know more about, I'm definitely an open book. You can always message me across my platforms.
I think that was beautifully said. And I definitely look forward to working with you, and we'll have to have you come back and we'll have to share with everybody how that went and just kind of talk about the trial and error that we went through. Everybody who's worked with Fitz so far has kind of been like, wow, that was not what I expected.
Oh, really?
I
okay,
think
cool.
It'll be really fun.
I like the challenge. I'm up for it.
Right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Straight Up Dog Talk, and we will see you guys next week.
Straight Up Dog Talk was created by Emily Breslin. It is edited and produced under the supervision of Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC, and Emily Breslin. If you're enjoying this podcast, follow or subscribe, and be sure you don't miss an episode. And leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Looking for more honest and relatable dog content? Check out our sister show, Unpacked, with Jerry Sheriff and Madison Simpson. Thanks for listening to Straight Up Dog Talk. See you next week.